Everyone expected bad news on the growth figures for the first 3 months this year, but no one expected it to be quite so dismal. Growth down to 5.3%, that's the lowest in nearly a decade, and that's brought down the overall growth for the last year to 6.5%, less than the government had estimated at 6.9%. The writing is on the wall. But will this now force the government to act and take much needed reform measures? Pranab Mukherjee today in a statement said the new figures were disappointing, but felt that the various factors which led to this have now bottomed out. The opposition says this is now officially a slowdown government, as top corporates and economists called for urgent action.
It's come as a real shocker. The growth in the January to March quarter slowing to 5.3%, the weakest growth that we have seen in 9 years, taking the growth for the last fiscal down to a dismal 6.5%, much lower than what was expected. But policymakers have very little to say.
Because of the manufacturing sector, the overall growth scenario of GDP has come down substantially.
The industry puts the blame squarely on the government's doorstep.
Well, let me just for the sake of overemphasis say that global factors have played very little role in this downturn in our Indian economy, and actually we've been using that as an excuse.
We've seen the government of India put up a board outside North Block to say foreign investors need not come.
Economists fear with the relentless fall in the rupee, the worst is clearly not over. The rupee today touched a new all-time low of 56.50.
This may not hold here. It may slip further lower because the subsequent quarter, that is the first quarter of fiscal 13, may reflect the impact of the weaker rupee.
High inflation means the RBI can't cut rates, and high fiscal deficit makes it difficult for the government to give any more stimulus.
As far as the government is concerned, any further fiscal stimulus of the type that we did in 2008 is not possible.
But with politics continuing to come in the way of good economics, even bold decisions like cutting fuel subsidies further look impossible. I spoke earlier with the Prime Minister's economic advisor, Dr. C. Rangarajan, on those disappointing numbers. Dr. Rangarajan, the industry says despite such a sharp slowdown, policymakers keep complimenting India's growth numbers by comparing it to the rest of the world, and that global economic worries are just merely an excuse. The problems are more self-inflicted given the huge policy paralysis and inaction by the government. How would you respond to that?
I don't think that we attribute this to some lack of policy as the main thing. Yes, I also believe that external factors have contributed to some extent the decline in the growth rate, but I do not blame the external factors as the major reason. Domestic factors are responsible. But if you look at the reasons behind the decline in the growth rate of manufacturing last year, we have to take into account the fact that inflation remained at a very high level for most of last fiscal. From April to November, the inflation rate remained at a high level exceeding 9%. And this made it difficult for the monetary authorities to ease the situation. And the interest rate continued to remain at a high level through greater part of last year. Therefore, I think it is not simply the action on the part of the government or not acting on the part of the government which is responsible, but there are other factors within the economy which were responsible for keeping the manufacturing rate growth slow, particularly the high level of inflation.
But Dr. Rangarajan, with little room for the government and the RBI to act, most experts and economists we've spoken to today say the worst is clearly not over. This year, growth may be even slower than last year. Are you going to revise your growth forecast downward for this fiscal?
No, I think the growth rate during the current fiscal will be between 6.5 and 7. There is no reason why the growth rate next year should be lower than the growth rate this year. For example, agriculture will continue to continue to do well because the monsoon is expected to be normal. As far as the manufacturing sector is concerned, we start with a low base. Certainly, we will do much better than what we did last year. I say this for a number of reasons. One, inflation will be at a much lower level this year than last year, giving some scope for adjustment in the interest rate. Second, some of the key infrastructure sectors which are in the public domain, like coal, roads and power, will do better during this current year. So I think for various reasons, the manufacturing sector will do better than last year. In fact, we need to do far better than last year, but certainly we will do better. And the services sector, even this year, except for one subsegment, which is the trade, hotels and communications, has been doing well, and will continue to do in the same way next year. Therefore, there is every reason to believe that the growth rate in the current fiscal will be anywhere between 6.5 and 7%.
Do you have the NDTV Profit app? All the markets, all the news and your own homemade, ready-made portfolio available there for you.
We will right now answer what you should sell, what you should buy when markets are down.
Download at ndtvprofit.com/apps. Get the best app from the channel you trust.